Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to episode 6 of Employees Only. Today we spoke to Phathead. He is the voice of WJVC My Country 96.1 and a real radio legend. What do you think, Rube?
It was awesome to talk to Phathead. You can tell he's, a real pro. As you'll hear, we were kind of building up to interview him. He was on our original list.
Yeah, I think we were nervous. He's a real professional.
Yeah, but you can tell. Ton of stories. Such a great guy. Inside scoop for you, which you're gonna have to listen to find out. We did get to the bottom. We did get to the bottom of his name. We do exclusively have Phathead's real name nestled in this interview.
This is breaking news shit right here. You're not
I'm
getting this on Fox or CNN or Facebook. Phathead's real name.
Yeah.
It's exposed.
Big scoop.
Feel free to Venmo us if you really take the value of that.
I think people will enjoy it, especially if you're a fan of him. If you're a country fan in general, some really cool. He's met everyone. He knows them all, like on a personal level as well. Like if you're a country fan, listen to this interview.
Yeah. Luke, little side story, little headline for you. Luke Bryan even called him on Christmas Eve. So
just to give you an idea of who this guy's dealing with.
He's a real ledge. Take a listen, and we hope you enjoy. And we'll see you next time.
And after you do that, follow us at Mulcahy's Pub on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, any social.
Apple Podcast, Employees
TikTok.
Only.
Just find us.
Ruby Ray 7 on Insta. What's my T Murray 54 on Insta?
Yeah.
Get us famous, All right. Talk to you later. And we're very lucky today to have Phathead, head DJ, and the voice of My Country 96.1. Thanks for being here with us via Zoom today, Phathead.
Listen, I'm happy to be here. I'm just curious why it took you 6 episodes to get me on.
I know. Well, you're a professional, so we had some people that
we had to build up the repertoire.
You're an on-air, real professional with a real studio and everything. So
the most pressure yet, I'd say.
we had to practice with some people who aren't used to it. How do we?
You guys have been doing good stuff. I've been, just following the Instagram and seeing this and just everything you guys are trying to do just to keep socially active. It's good.
Yeah, Ruby runs the Instagram, and with no concerts or anything,
Yeah, it can be tough, definitely. But, just trying to keep moles in people's minds and stuff. I'm sure, you guys do an awesome job on your socials as well. So we always appreciate you guys sharing and, keeping the community going. We love that.
Alrighty.
Absolutely.
I'm going to hop into an exciting question right away, if you don't mind.
Oh, God.
What has been the most exciting or greatest moment as working as the voice of My Country?
Man, this is real life. I didn't get questions beforehand, so this
I put people on the pressure here.
Absolutely. Now, I will say, because I'm staring at your face, Tim. Okay, the night a year and 13 days ago now, June 13th, when I got to introduce Luke Combs at your establishment. Listen, I'd have to sit down here and think for a while, what are our top moments in the history of the station? Yeah. That's in the top 3. There's no doubt about it. The wall of sound that came back at us when we introduced Luke, and to have a guy of that stature who's, it's not even close. He's the biggest artist in the format. It was an amazing night. I'll always think about it almost every day, to be honest with you.
Us too. Yeah. We can't get over it. It was funny about that night too. It was the first show that My Country did anything with Mulcahy's, really, like the first, teamed up event we did. Now we've done a couple more, and it was Luke Combs, and we were under construction a little bit too, and I was so nervous that something was going to go wrong.
And lest we forget, not only Luke Combs, it was Hunter Hayes, Colby Clay,
Hunter Hayes, Colby Clay.
Saints. It was any of those in their own right would have been a truly memorable night, for us. But it was, it's an understatement to say one for the books. Yeah. That really was. Anyone who was there, we'll know what we're talking about.
It was funny. I was so nervous that I was enjoying it so much, but I almost was relieved when it was over. You know?
It's like your own wedding. It's
Yeah.
like your own. It's like if you're involved in your own big thing, you can't enjoy it because you just want it to go so well.
Yeah.
You know.
But it
There
did,
was
thank
such a
God.
buzz that day. I just always remember us getting into work at 9 and there already being people outside camping out. It was awesome. It was such a special day, and thanks to My Country.
Thanks to Phathead. Yeah, everyone's like, Tim, how'd you do it? I'm like, don't mention it. You know, I pull off big things every now and then, but I really didn't do anything. It was all Phathead.
Well,
Still reaping the
I
credit.
like to mess with you guys a little bit because even though we are going to have amazing nights for decades to come, we'll never top Luke Combs. You're just not going to top Luke Combs. It's unbelievable.
It's all downhill for Phathead now.
That's it.
I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, we'll be okay.
I
Sure.
think another one was a big one was the secret show you did at Emporium. You had Darius Rucker, right? That must have been a huge.
That I'll tell you what. That took a lot of doing. That took probably about. I know this may not sound like a long time, but it took about 6 months to put together to lock him down to make sure he could do it. He actually was routed perfectly. You know, part of what artists do when they plan shows, obviously, for those who don't know, is they have to route city to city. So it makes sense, you know, financially and driving distance and everything. I'm almost positive, if I didn't forget, the night after us, he was driving to Washington, D.C. for like a national honor thing, some kind of big national show. Mm-hmm. And it just happened to be that he was on his way to DC, you know, 4 or 5 hours away, and it worked. And he said yes, so it was awesome.
That's awesome. So for people who don't know, again, Phathead and the My Country Radio do a secret Christmas show every year, and they have like 4 or 5 acts. It's usually like the first week of December, like December 3rd or 4th, and nobody knows who's going to play except Phathead and maybe a couple of the tech, you know, roadie sound guys. So the crowd is there, the tickets are free, or you do a bunch of giveaways, and no one has a clue until the artist steps on stage who's playing. We did it here at Mulcahy's this year. It was Kip Moore, like we said. We did, you guys have done Darius Rucker, Eli Young Band. Whose idea was that, the secret show? Because it's one of the coolest things, I think, on Long Island all year long.
You know, I forget who was in the meeting or how it came up, but we were at the radio station a while back, and we had done our first holiday show in 2012, I want to say, or it was either late 2011 or the December of 2012. And we announced it and we sold tickets. And I think the next year we did the same thing. And then we got to the point where we said, you know, nobody has any great surprises anymore. Like the only great surprise left in your life at a certain point is having a baby and not knowing if it's a boy or a girl when it's about to come out. Right. Mm-hmm. So we just said, you know, wouldn't it be cool to get artists and see if we can keep it a secret and just have people try to guess and have a good time. It's, you know, and it just became a thing. You know, I think we started the secret aspect in 2014. Eli Young Band, I want to say, was the first one. And we've been doing it ever since. Yeah.
Is it tough to keep it under wraps? Have there ever been any kind of like slips on air or anything like that?
So here's a funny one. Actually, it's hasn't been that difficult to keep it under wraps leading up to the show. Right. But I have to remind the artists that are performing that night, don't say who's coming up next, because artists like to do that. Hey, thank you so much. Good night. Coming up in a couple of minutes, you know. So a secret holiday show we had back in, I want to say it was 2015. I had a very young Dan and Shay. Oh, wow. And I mean, love these guys. These are buddies. They're close friends. And back then they were just, you know, a bunch of new guys coming up.
They're huge now. Huge.
It was great. And I told them, I said, don't say who's coming up next. So what do? They finish up their show and they say, are you guys excited for, it was Casey Musgraves. Are you guys excited for Casey Musgraves and the Cadillac 3? And I'm just like, this was like a half hour into the show. They're giving up the rest of the lineup. And I'm like, come on, what are you doing? It was funny. Good stuff.
Well, I wish I didn't, me and you and, like I said, the sound guy knew who was playing, because you have to advance the show, so I knew. And then I think even my dad, the boss here, was like, "Who's playing? Who's playing?" I'm like, "I'm not telling you." So I want to be honest. I didn't tell anyone, and people shouldn't even ask. Like, enjoy. I was telling people, like, enjoy the surprise. You know, my one
Puts you
friend's
in a
like,
bad spot.
my one friend was like, "It's not Luke Combs again, right?" I'm like, I would tell you if it's Luke Combs. You know, but
Well, I'll just say that it's been ever since Darius Rucker, because he was a secret, as we mentioned. It's been hard to live up to that. I mean, it's Darius Rucker. I had a secret show with Darius Rucker. So every year they're like, is it Jason Aldean? Is it Luke Bryan? I'm like, relax, calm down.
Yeah. My one friend, he was like, if it's Kenny Chesney, tell me. I'm like, okay, but I don't think so. So to go all the way back, is being a radio DJ something you always wanted to do, or you fell into it? How did that go?
See, we could sit here for hours. I love talking about this stuff.
We got time.
I grew up listening. So seventh grade, I remember this vividly. I'm 12 years old, pop a cassette in my my player, and it would record 45 minutes on one side and 45 on the other, or whatever. And I'd go to school and I'd record Howard Stern, and I'd come home from school and I'd listen to an hour and a half of Howard Stern, and I grew up listening to him. That's really how I got started in loving radio, was sneaking Howard Stern in my bedroom.
Me too. Yeah.
It was, I mean, it literally shaped me into what I was. But what was interesting, when I went to college, I went to Binghamton. I started at Binghamton for accounting, because when I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I really wanted to be a musician, but it wasn't going to pan out. And my father was an accountant, and he said, look, you got into Binghamton, go study accounting. And then after like 2 years, I'm like, this is not for me. And I didn't know what to do. I actually transferred to Hofstra and went into the communications department. And on day one, still not knowing I was going to be in radio, on day one, someone came into my class and said, we have a radio station. Everyone should come sign up. And the rest is history. I fell in love.
Wow. So back to Howard Stern. I was reading your bio that your first job was interning there at the Stern Show. That must have been a dream come true, since that got you into radio.
It was cool. A lot of people will say, what was it like? Is it crazy? It was absolutely not crazy. It was pure business. Everyone had their role. They were serious about it. Of course, what went on in the studio was what it was. But outside the studio, everyone knew their job. I will say this about Howard, though. I vividly remember that at the time they were also filming a TV show of his radio show. And I think it was on Channel 9 or whatever it was. And he would be getting makeup done and stuff in the morning. And then he would come through the hallways on his way to the studio like 5 minutes before 6 o'clock, and he'd say hi to everybody. And he'd always have a smile or a hi or a wave. He was always in a good mood, and pleasant and nice. And I still have a little card that he gave me when I left. He gave all the interns a little gift when they left, and I still have a little card. It's not very big.
Oh, that's nice.
And it says, "Thanks for a great year, Howard." And I still have it saved, and I got to frame it. It's in good shape. I got to put it in a frame here. It's been 20 some odd years already.
And
what
was your role as an intern, Phathead? What did you have to do?
I mostly did production work. I was working with Scott the engineer, actually, doing a lot of production in his back production room. But
it said 97
you did
too.
A little bit of everything.
That's like classic. That's like prime time Howard Stern when he was really starting to blow up, right? 97, like that's.
Yeah, it was 97. He was just, I think his first movie first book was just coming out. It was a big moment. Big things were going on at the time. Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you ever reach out to him and tell him you've become a radio legend yourself? I'm sure he'd be proud.
Listen, the truth is, if we were to walk down the street, I'm sure he'd pass me right by. Yeah. He wouldn't remember, he wouldn't know, he wouldn't remember. He sees so many people. I would love, I think that's a dream of mine, which I never talk about. I've never really thought about, but since you bring it up, a dream of mine would be able to, to sit with him and talk to him about how he started this in me, and just to chat and have a conversation with the guy all these years later. You
I'm
know?
sure none of his interns, like except for you, became big radio personalities. So I'm sure he'd do it. You got to get John on one of the higher
bucket list.
I'll get him on employees only,
I'll
and you could be the other interviewer.
So, Fab, what was the next step after that? Was My Country kind of right after that? Was there an in between step for you after Howard?
Oh, there was a lot of in between. So,
and I'm sorry, did you grow up? You grew up on Long Island as well?
I grew up in Rockaway Beach in Queens.
Oh, okay, cool,
nice.
Yeah, man, it's great out there. But yeah, grew up in Rockaway. The chief engineer of Hofstra's radio station when I was graduating was also the president of Party 105 JVC Broadcasting, as it is now, John Cracchiola.
Oh, wow.
And when I graduated Hofstra, the head of Hofstra Radio said, you know, John runs some stations, WLIR, Party 105. Why don't you go see him? So I went, I saw him, and got an entry-level position. I was a van driver. I was a promotion guy. The program director of Party 105 put me on air, and then it just kind of steamrolled from there. But I was actually at the beginning of Party 105 when we first signed on. It was a brand new signal from day one. And then what made it a couple other stops was at 94.3 out of Farmingdale, and was also I was at BLI for a little bit. And I've been here signed on My Country in January of 2011, and been here the whole time since day one. We flipped the signal to country, and I've been here, and it's great. I always say, if I have to leave country, I will leave radio. I can only do country music now. It's just, nice. It's too good.
Prior to My Country, like your first few on-air opportunities, were they weren't necessarily country then? It was all kind of...
my first station I was at for 4 years was dance. We did a lot of it was a lot of EDM, the early days of EDM, and it was all dance music. Played a little bit of hip hop. Party 105 was very
that was huge.
Maybe what's that?
That was a huge station when that got gone.
It was unique. Yeah. It was unique. It was very aggressive at the time with the current dance music, and it was very club oriented. It was cool when we signed that station on in 1998, and right before the summer, and it blew up. It was a lot of fun. So dance and pop. I mean, I love Broadway. I mean, I listened to it all. I grew up on Metallica. Rush and Metallica were like my youth. That was
me too. Yeah.
That was my thing. So I love it all. Yeah.
Did you like country before you signed on to My Country, the radio station, or like did you do it as the job and now you just love country because of the work, or were you into country going into it?
That's a good question, because the only thing I knew about country music when I got the job was Keith Urban, Making Memories of Us was my wedding song.
Oh, nice.
And I knew Rascal Flatts had been on American Idol, you know, the finale with Carrie Underwood, and I knew Carrie Underwood came from American Idol, and I had heard of Lady Antebellum and whatever. I was not brought up on country music at all. I just, you know, it was a job at the time, which I completely sunk my teeth into and fell in love with, and literally to the point now where I will not work for another genre unless it's within the company. And, you know, we all have our hands in a lot of things. I help with different things, but if I had to move to another company, if it couldn't be country music, I'm not doing it. I can't.
That's incredible. How did that interview go? Were you pretty candid about your kind of lack of experience with the genre, or did you?
Yeah, you know what was interesting? The owners of this radio station were signing on a country station, brand new. It hadn't existed yet.
Right.
And they were getting their feet wet too. They didn't know a lot about country music either. And they said, you know what, we'll do this together. And I knew them from the past. You know, the owner of the company, John, gave me my first job at Party 105. So they're the people that were involved. What's that?
You were like all in it together as new country
people. We were we were a team. We were figuring it out together. It was great.
That's so funny. Yeah, country definitely is blown up, even like within 5 to 10 years. Because I remember in high school, I didn't listen to any of it. Going into college, country wasn't that big. And then I think like mid-college to graduation time, it's just exploded since then.
I was going to ask you this a little later on, but I guess it kind of is relevant now. Why do you think country does so well on Long Island? Because I've been on Long Island for 10 years, and so all I've known is kind of Long Island's obsession with country music. Why do you think that is? Did you anticipate how successful My Country would be? Was it kind of heading that way when the station came about?
We had no idea how it was going to do. I'm not sure we thought it would last. There was really no clue. We were jumping in with no idea. I think what happened was, Long Island, specifically where we are in Suffolk County, is, this is country territory. When you're driving through Suffolk County and you see our incredible listeners and fans, it's like being in so many different parts of the country, like being in upstate New York, being down south. It's incredible. And we had no clue. I mean, people just started popping their heads up like, oh my God, where'd this radio station come from? Our phone lines were flooded. People would come out to our events. And at that point we knew, okay, we had something here, but we didn't know at the time when we signed on. We knew there was a hole in the market. That hole was, there was no country station.
Yeah.
So.
And you guys might have timed it perfectly with just the overall, like, United States of America, like getting into country. It seems like the timing was perfect, and like you said, you filled the need. What I like about you guys' station too? It's so local. Like the roots are so local. Like you do events on Long Island. Like you have guests. All your sponsors are Long Island based, and you might say like, yeah, I'll branch out, become a national station. But I think your local, like vibe, if you want to call it, is what makes your station so good, and like the ads are affordable, and like you don't have too many ads as a listener. It just works. The local vibe you guys have created.
There was a time, country or not, when a lot of people were saying regular terrestrial radio is going to be overtaken by satellite, right? You remember that time where satellite was the big thing. We always in radio thought, you know what? Slow down. Satellite's cool. Everyone's got their little place, but we knew that the typical radio listener is someone who's commuting to work. Maybe their commute's 20 minutes, 30 minutes. They're driving, they're in traffic. And they want to hear their local personality talking about local weather, talking about local towns, local events. For the most part, that's what has kept radio alive, is the fact that people want to hear what's going on in their area, their localized news and weather and personalities. And they go to the grocery store and they know, oh, that's the guy I see at the grocery store. I think that's really overall what's kept radio alive and makes it unique in that sense.
Yeah. And you guys, like I said, just put on the best events on Long Island. So that helps your listenership too.
Thank you. We try.
Going back again. So as the DJ, like, are you the one that picks the music? I don't know how that works.
To the credit of my bosses, they let me have full reign as to what goes on. Look, we deal with all the artists and the management and the record labels, and they're pushing certain songs. I mean, if you ever wondered why a radio station will play the same song by the same artist over and over and over again, the record label and the artist and their management wants that song to be heard and become a number one hit. And that means the artist grows in popularity and the artist can get paid a little more money to perform a concert. And, if you take 7 different songs from an artist and just randomly splatter them on the radio and don't give any of those songs enough attention, you don't know what that's going to do to the artist. But if you can find one hit that people can just get, in their brain and they just sing over and over and over, it does something for the act, and it grows their brand a little more. And so I deal with the labels. Some of it's my own personal decision. If I like a record, I can just throw it on. If someone, even if they don't tell me they want it played, I could, you know what? I love this Luke Combs record. I could certainly put it on the air. We have a lot of freedom at this radio company. Yeah.
And is there like it's kind of a tech question. Is there like a metric or something that tells you like, oh, this song got more hits, or people like turned it off when this song went on? Like, is there any technology that gives you that feedback? It's all just kind of a guess.
If there is, we don't use it. I mean, this is the best thing about this company. Yeah. JVC has always been from the gut, local. Let's just hit the street, come up with an idea and do it. The same way we grew a partnership with you guys at Mulcahy's. We just, we got on the phone and we said, we think you could use us and we could use you, and let's, and that's what we do. As far as the music and everything, it's really all gut. There's all sorts of research you can look at, but when it comes down to it, if you're in the business, you kind of have an idea, what listeners are gravitating towards on the radio, and what songs are hits and what aren't. And, we love to just go off what we feel, and that's what makes the radio station great.
That's cool.
As we're kind of touching upon, you guys have obviously got that FM formula down to an art. Do you have you noticed a lot of changes in the industry, like from kind of your career? And what would you say the biggest changes have been? Have you had to kind of adapt any particular way, or have you guys just kind of like stuck to the plan and it kind of just seems to be working with the demographic and what you're playing?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've stuck to what we're doing. The industry as a whole has completely changed since I got into radio in the late 90s. There's a lot of consolidation, a lot of radio stations. You might hear the same personality on 7 different radio stations for, some of these big companies. Instead of having 7 or 8 different morning shows, they will have, one guy doing the same morning show on 7 or 8 of their radio stations. There's been a lot of that. With technology comes the ability to do more things by computer and maybe not need as many people. Luckily, again, when it comes down to it, even though we have a lot of radio stations here on Long Island, JVC has 5 of them. We're lucky to have real live local personalities, and our company has not cut anybody as far as, live and local. But a lot of these other big companies around the country, people are losing jobs left and right. So I feel very lucky to be at this type of situation.
Very nice. It seems like, it doesn't seem like it's true. The country artists have remained extremely loyal to the radio stations and especially FM stations, it seems. Why do you think that is, opposed to like, some of these pop artists? You never see them doing like events at like local places like Mulcahy's. Like these big artists like do events for you, and like they go on your show, and like what? And it seems like even like you watch the CMAs, they're always thanking their radio stations. Why do you think radio and country have stayed so close to connected?
Radio and country music have always gone together. The artists are so loyal, and I think they realize there's this fact that just is in their brain that if, look, you could have a song that streams a lot, and you could have a song on satellite, but to have a number 1 hit on radio is still the thing that drives country music. Mm-hmm. And I think you'll hear record labels and artists say the same thing. There's nothing like having that number 1 hit, literally top of the charts, where you get that plaque and it's, we were number 1 on Billboard or whatever the case may be. That is what grows the brand for these artists. And they definitely understand the relationship between local radio pushing their songs to number 1 and the importance of that. So they will befriend us or, make a partnership out of it. Whereas, in pop music, obviously we know it's a little different. And that's why I said earlier, I could never go back to pop music. I could never leave the country format, because the access to the artists and the true friendships you create, the relationships that go on in this genre are unlike any other genre in music. And the country artists know that, and they've always stuck to that. Always.
We've definitely witnessed that here. Any of our staff will tell you we've had such good experiences, in terms of the country artists just here, and even their people, their teams, how they've dealt with our staff, our kind of family here. Are there any that stand out to you? Obviously, you've got a real knack for cultivating these really close relationships with the artists, and you can tell that they've got a lot of mutual respect for you. Are there any artists that kind of stand out as ones that you've kind of kept in touch with, or just kind of really stand out as like incredible people?
One thing too, Phathead, before you start, for people that don't know, when we have artists here, when they're sitting in the green room, they're very nice to me, and like Ruby said, they've created a culture to be nice to everyone. The tour, the guy who books them, the roadies, the bartenders that helped them out. One of the guys told me, like, yeah, we have a culture, and if they step out of line in that, the other country artists and the tour people, like, keep them accountable. So just what Ruby was saying, like, I can't say enough how nice all of them are. And back to you, when you show up in the green room, they get out of their chair and give you a hug. Like, you've developed the best relationships with all these artists. It's unbelievable. I don't want to cut you off, but I just wanted to give people who are listening, like Phathead, you're like their best friend ever. Like, they hug you like they haven't seen their brother in 3 months.
Well, look, I'm going to say most of that is absolutely genuine and real. Some of that is that I'm playing their music and they know I'm helping them, but 100%. So I'll give you two answers here.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I know we gave you about 5 questions there.
I'm really, I love Keith Urban. I love Keith Urban. What you see with Keith Urban is what you get. Nicest guy of all time. Wow. Just a sweetheart, and love that man. I'm very close with Dan from Dan and Shay, and I'll hear from him every once in a while. The guys from Low Cash. I mean, I could go on and on about who I text with and who I call. I will say, when my wife was deployed overseas, she's in the military, and this was going back 5 years ago. My wife was deployed, and Christmas Eve, Luke Bryan called me.
Oh, no way.
Now, he called. Look, he never had my phone number. I'm sure, he probably called and got it from a manager or a record label or something. I'm not saying we're buddies on the cell phone, but Luke Bryan called me to see how I was doing, wish me a Merry Christmas, because he knew my wife was away. Wow. So,
unbelievable.
There's stuff like that. As far as artists that I've seen that I couldn't believe, like, how amazing they were when they burst on the scene, the rise of Florida Georgia Line, Sam Hunt, Luke Combs. I'm trying to think who else stands out, but those three in particular blew up so fast. FGL was out of nowhere. Sam Hunt was like, it was insane how quick that was. And Luke Combs still shocks me. I mean, I told Luke once, I said, Luke, you don't look like your typical guy that everyone's going to fawn over. Yeah. And he laughs about it, and he says, but he's real. He's a real dude. And I think everyone can relate to him, and they feel like he's their buddy, and you never know what's going to work in this format, right? It's amazing.
Going back to that phone call, so did you have a heads up that you were getting the call, or was it just like a private number? And
No, I'm lucky I picked up, to be honest with you.
Who the hell's calling me on Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve?
I've missed a few calls because I was screening my calls, and I had to go listen to the voicemail and say, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't pick up that phone call.
How do you think you developed these great relationships, just like with all these artists, besides just the work thing? Because I don't think they're just nice to you because you play their songs. There must be something more to it.
I mean, Tim, look at me. I'm a personable guy. Yeah, come on. Yeah. But we're no, seriously. You know what? You could tell I could talk, right? I could go on and on. This thing should be like 3 hours long. I love talking. I love relationships. I just like hanging and finding out about people. And I guess you add that into the mix, and artists that, feel the same way about connecting with radio. It just works,
Nice. Do you get recognized a lot, Phathead, or do you ever have people recognize your voice?
I'd say I do get recognized from the face a little bit, but it's more so the voice. I could be ordering food in a restaurant and a waitress will be like, I know who you are. Or I'm walking into a bank and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to deposit this check. And, she's like, I listen to you in the morning. So yeah, I get that from time to time. Yeah.
That's so funny.
And just a quick side question, because it's on my list there and I don't want to forget it. What is the origin of the name? Just assuming that Phathead isn't on your driver's license.
This is good. First, let me ask you, because this is real life. Okay. Yeah. I hear above, I'm in the basement. I hear above, my son is having a meltdown. Do you hear that? Is that coming through on the microphone?
No.
Studio.
Fantastic.
We could pause. We could pause it if you want to go attend to your son.
No. This is real life, and my wife is up there, so it's okay. There's an adult with him.
Okay.
So back when I got my first job in 1998 at the dance radio station, I didn't have a name for on air, and I didn't want to go by my regular name, which I don't tell a lot of people. Listen, it's Adam. Okay, my name's Adam. So
breaking
I'm
news.
like, so what should I do? What should I what should I call myself? The program director at the time just made an offhand comment, and this is the 90s, right? He goes, "You've got a fat head," meaning PHAT, right? Yeah. So that was it. It just stuck. Like, girls thought it was funny. Now remember, also at the time, there's no Instagram, there's no Facebook, social media is non-existent. The only way people know who you are, what you look like, is by showing up and seeing you at an event. So there was some mystery. They're like, who's this guy, Phathead? I got to go see him. I got to see what this guy looks like. It just became a thing. It became
They probably thought you were like morphed or something. Well, that's a good one. And thank you for telling us your real name. This is breaking news, guys. People should pay to watch this.
Headline.
Yeah.
There's the teaser.
Obviously, you're a legend in the radio business and on Long Island. What advice would you give an aspiring DJ or any radio personality?
I would make sure that this is what you want to do. Look, when I got into it, when I studied radio, when I got into the business, it was a different time. As we've mentioned in this podcast, and there's a lot of consolidation in big companies. Again, we're a mom and pop, even though we have a lot of radio stations. We're a mom and pop, and we have a lot of people working here, and it's been great. The owners they want that. They want employees here. But the first thing I would tell people is, be careful. It's an industry where people are losing jobs, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of technology taking over. So be sure this is something you love, and this is something you want to get into. The second piece of advice is do as many jobs as possible. I started as a promotion director. I started as a van driver. I know production. I could put together commercials. I do all the promos on the radio station that you hear for concerts and everything. I produce them myself on my laptop. I run the radio station. I pick the music. I talk to the record labels. I do the morning show. You can't just be hired at a radio company to be an on-air personality anymore. It just doesn't work that way. You need to do multiple jobs. Yeah. So make sure that you have a little bit of a background going into it.
That's great advice, yeah.
Have you branched out into podcasts at all?
I've thought about it. To be honest, I just I don't know. I just never did it. I never went out and looked into it. How do I do it? Get the microphones, get the equipment, whatever. I actually have wanted to do it for a long time. That's why I love being with you guys doing this and talking about it. I would definitely look to do something if I had a little more time. Yeah. I got 3 kids and all this work going on, but I would, it's something I've thought about. Yeah.
Well, you talk to the artists too on the radio and everything. Right. What advice would you give us as new interviewers?
Let me tell you something. You guys are prepared. You're doing the whole thing that like TV shows do where like, one interviewer talks, the next one asks the next question, the other one asks the next question. Like you guys, you have this thing, you're going back and forth. You have all your notes. I can tell you're peeking down, but you're not reading off the card. You guys are.
Thank you.
You guys are doing all right. I like it.
We've been very bored lately, so we've been practicing. Well, we have a question we've been asking everyone. I'll let Ruby take it away on this one.
So, Phathead, obviously, with it, well, we like to think we're heading, towards some kind of normality after lockdown and COVID and all that, and not to get dredged down in that conversation. But to look ahead to when things do return back to normal, we've been asking everyone if there was one big comeback show. We'll call it Phathead Fest. Who's headlining Phathead Fest and who's opening up?
And it could be dead or alive. There's no budget. Anyone who's ever been a musician.
Obviously, we'll waive the venue fee for Mulcahy's. It's all yours.
All right. To me, this is a no-brainer.
Really? Okay.
The headliner of this show is Metallica.
Nice.
There's no doubt about it.
I'm in for that.
I would give anything to see Metallica headline Mulcahy's.
Me too.
But most of all, part of the reason for that, besides the love of their music and growing up on it, was I just want to sit in the green room and talk to these guys. I've never met them. I have been dying to sit and have a conversation with Lars or James.
Wow. Did you see him
I love those guys.
The Nassau Coliseum when they were there like 2 or 3 years ago?
I did. That was in 2017. I've seen them a lot.
Yeah.
I've seen them all over the place. When they were at the Coliseum in 2017, I took my wife. It was our first Metallica show. It was
I went to that
amazing.
too. It was nuts. I was in like the mosh pit. I got beat up, but it was worth it.
That's awesome. And opening act?
With that, listen, and I know the country fans are probably like, "What are you doing? You're a country." But listen, this is real life.
Country, yeah.
We're bringing Neil Peart back. Unfortunately, he passed away recently, and Rush is opening the show.
Nice.
And they could flip a coin for who headlines, I guess. But that was my youth.
Yeah.
You can throw Guns N' Roses in there if you want, but Metallica and Rush was my life as a kid and a musician,
drums.
And I just love it. Yeah.
And then one of us, so obviously you've got AAA pass, so you're meeting Metallica in the green room at your VIP table, 3 guests, same type of thing. Doesn't necessarily have to be music. Dead or alive, 3 VIP guests sitting up at your table with you. Who are those?
Oh my God. Oh boy. I'm assuming my wife is going to watch this. We'll put my wife at the table.
You don't want to get in trouble.
She's at the table. That's unbelievable. See, you could give other than the wife, right? You can give the typical answers like, "Oh, I'd invite my father," or no, yeah. But here's the truth, right? The truth is, you want someone at that table who's going to appreciate.
Yeah, you want to party with them, yeah.
The show, right? And it's not. See, it's not even about the party. It's about.
That's a different perspective than some of what we've had.
I don't care about who's partying.
Right.
I want someone it's like when I'm watching a TV show. If someone's in the room watching that show with me, they better be full on paying attention to the show. So right. I need someone at the table who is going to appreciate what they're seeing on stage. Yeah. God, I don't want to just throw out answers that don't mean anything. Yeah. I'd have to pick a couple of buddies, I guess, who live and breathe these artists the way I live and breathe these artists, you know?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, we can though get that off the bucket list. Howard Stern we could throw up there, and then you could have that conversation.
There you see? There you go. We'll put Howard at the table and someone, maybe your chef there, who can just keep bringing food. How about that?
That works.
He'd
Yeah.
love that. We'll get him out of the basement.
Yeah, it'd be cool to have Plato or old Greek philosophers or something, but you don't want them talking during a drum solo. Right. So that makes a lot of sense.
Great looking at.
That's awesome.
All right, Phathead. So we've got you for 40 minutes here. Like you said, I think we could talk for hours, but I think we'll let you go. Maybe check on your kid and make sure everything's all right.
I'm sure they're fine.
Yeah. Yeah. But we miss you here, obviously. I know we have a couple shows that got postponed, so when we're allowed to have concerts again, you guys will be one of the first people back in here. And we're really looking forward to having you guys back. And thank you for all the stuff you've, teamed up with us already. And I think we got a bright future ahead once all this COVID stuff is in the window,
Listen, before you hit stop on this, I do want to say a couple things.
I won't, yeah.
The what you said it's rare in this business to have relationships the way we have a relationship. You guys over there at Mulcahy's, from everything from the staff to the food to the venue to what you've done to the venue to enhance it now, is top notch. It's an incredible relationship. We're texting. Me and Tim here, we're texting all the time. Ideas. What do you want to do? Who are we booking?
Yeah.
So
my dad's
I want everyone.
My dad's like, why don't you text Phathead? See what country music's going on. I'm like, I talk to Phathead every single day.
You mean Adam?
Yeah. Your wife's probably like, who are you texting all night? Because I'll start texting you at midnight. I'm like, oh, sorry.
It's Jake from State Farm.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's me. It's Tim from Moles.
I just want anyone who's watching and this to know how great you guys are and the time and effort you guys take to to put into your product. And the other thing, just randomly, is our radio company. We have some great stations in it. The only all news radio station out here, LI News Radio 103.9, got Party 105, got My Country. La Fiesta 98.5, great product. And Oldies 98, which I know we're looking to do some oldies stuff as well with you guys. And we love broadcasting, and we love shows, and we love venues, and we love good people. And that's why I get excited about this stuff. So from our company to yours, we appreciate you guys very much.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Means a lot.
Yeah, it means a lot. Everyone check them out, too. Get off your Sirius radio. Go back to old school. Not too many commercials, like I said. And you can listen to Phathead all day. It's perfect. Phathead, thank you so much. Can we get you back one time? Maybe we have to get you back,
Where am I going?
I know.
Come on.
We'll do some in-studio stuff once you're here for a show. Maybe we'll do two birds, one stone kind of thing. Get you on another show.
Whenever you need me, just hit me up. I'm ready to come back on, no doubt.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I'll talk to you soon, all right?
All the best.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for upcoming interviews and much more of the same from Employees Only Podcast.